Hello and welcome to the class on Industrial Revolution. In this class, we are going to talk about the impact of Industrial Revolution in Britain and in other part of Europe. Industrial Revolution was a phenomena that took place in Britain during middle of 18th century. What was the revolution all about? I have already discussed that in other class. The revolution was actually the development of economic process with the assistance of innovations. And what were the innovation? First, the innovation was introduction of machine into factories itself. Then we can say it was obviously development of hydropower, steam engine, railways, innovation in agriculture, obviously communication system, transportation. So, in industrial revolution saw change and innovation in every aspect of production as far as economy is concerned. Now, there was a far reaching impact on society due to industrial revolution. What was the first impact? The first impact was that Britain and all those countries which adopted industrial revolution, Britain shifted from agricultural sector to industrial sector. Now, industrial sector was contributing the largest part of GDP in the Britain, and not only that, it also helped Britain become one of the topmost exporter of finished good in the world. So, obviously, Britain was earning lot of profit because of industrial revolution. What was the next effect? The next effect, if we see, it was migration of people from villages to cities. This was one of the major major impact of industrial revolution. For the first time, we saw a huge amount of interstate migration within a country, where people from rural area went to urban area, because in urban area there were opportunities of job, there were industries which were set up and they became laborer there. So, there was a population boom in the cities. Now, this resulted in many social issues. So, if we look into the impact of of industrial revolution, it was not only positive, but there were certain negative impact as well. The social impact is something which even today historians are studying. What was the first social impact? Obviously, increase in crime. Because most of the laborers who came to cities, they were poor, because for capitalists they were just a product of they were a basic factor of production. They were not important than that. Now, being laborers, being factor of production, were merely exploited, and welfare of these laborers were not seen or not taken up in a more serious manner. So, if we visit the early industrial phase of Britain, it is said that the cities of Britain were divided into two starkly different areas, one which had only slum and other which had luxurious bungalows of the capitalists and managerial class. So, that was one important fact. The people who were living in slum, who were dwelling in poverty, took up crime and took up criminal activities. The next important social impact was destruction of morality and village life. The village life was centered around society. It was not individualistic. It had certain ethics, certain moral code of conduct, but that actually got destroyed as People traveled to urban areas where every inch had only slum and there was no trade route or social connection among people. So, that also resulted in lot of violence and dissolution among people regarding their existence. The next important effect or impact of industrialization, as I told you, was growth of population, poverty and bad sanitary condition in cities. This was a very important impact because more and more people started coming to cities, but there was a huge number of population which was migrating to cities, but they were poor, they did not have enough money, and industrialists called laborers as cog in the machine, which meant that they were supposed to be exploited, they were supposed to be made to work really hard for the profit earning of the capitalist. Now, the condition of sanitation was miserable in these cities and this resulted to many diseases during that time. The next important impact was environmental impact that could be seen. Environmental impact because of the smoke coming out of the chimneys of the industry resulted in lot many health issues among the laborers. This in turn resulted in many labor movement during that time, and one must remember all these issues hastened the coming of socialism in Europe at that time. In fact, Karl Marx had very closely observed the situation of the laborers and then he developed his theory on socialism. So, environment impact was one, and as I told you, labor movement and penetration of democracy was the next important impact. Penetration of democracy. So, penetration of democracy was very important impact during that time. If you see at that time many labor movement was happening and soon the government themselves realized that the idea of laissez-faire was sine qua non, means just giving capitalists the free hand to look into their profit will not allow capitalism to survive. People themselves will revolt against such an temperament. Because of this, many labor movement happened and at the same time many new regulations were passed. In a very slow manner, voting rights were extended to the poor section of the society. By 1824, trade union was legalized in Britain, and by 1929, universal adult franchise was also introduced in Britain. Not only that, there were many factory regulation act which were passed during this time, so that the age of a laborer working in a factory could be regularized or determined, and the work condition of a woman who is working in a factory could also be looked into. These were major changes that happened because of industrialization, and it hastened the process of democracy and penetration of democracy among the people and masses. The last impact of industrial revolution was obviously colonialization. Now, these British industrialists or European industrialists, they needed more and more raw material, and Britain alone could not have provided so much amount of raw material as per the number of industries at that time in Europe. Obviously, they looked towards the new nation or new world like Asia, Africa, America, they went to colonize this world, they procured raw material from there, and industrial boom now gave them the freedom to create more more commodity. Where were they going to sell these commodities which were being produced due to rapid industrial revolution and technological innovation? Britain was just an island and it had saturated its own market. It needed more market. Now, there was a new phase of colonialization after industrial revolution. The phase was in this phase what we see, the colonies were turned into market, and it was devastating for the colonies because it led to the ruination of their own traditional industry and the market. So, what had happened? For example, India was turned into market by Britishers. Why? Now, with India turning into market, British product were sold in large amount in a new country and Britain was earning profit. So, this relationship between colonial, industrialized countries and pre-industrialized countries was not placed on equal footing. This resulted in exploitation of those countries which were not involved in industrial revolution. So, the impact of industrial revolution was far reaching, and this class it tried to discuss all the points under this topic. Hope the class was helpful for you.